Join spiritual feminist and empowerment coach Joni Advent Maher for Trust Your Sacred Feminine Flow. Listen in for intimate conversations about money, transformation, and feminine sovereignty. And now, your host, Joni Advent Maher.
Welcome to Trust Your Sacred Feminine Flow. I'm your host, Joni Advent Maher. I'm a mystic, a spiritual midwife, and a transformational guide. And I am so excited and delighted to welcome today Marion Rose. Welcome,
Yay!
Marion.
Yay! Thank you so much, Joni. I'm so glad to be here.
Yes. And it took us a while to make this happen. We had a few false starts, but we're here.
We absolutely did, yes, and we are here. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for just keeping on going so that we would absolutely be here today.
Yes. And so you are my second episode and interview for the new year and the new decade. So I think that's very auspicious.
I think it's a powerful year, hey, 2020.
Yes, indeed, indeed. So let me share a little bit about you, and so our listeners have a sense of what they're in for. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, so Marion has a PhD on the mother-infant relationship from Cambridge University, and she has trained in modalities including psychosynthesis, psychotherapy. She's a mom. She has a 17-year-old daughter and a 13-year-old son. And at this moment, she is particularly passionate about the bigger picture of mothering and how it relates to colonialization, cultural conditioning, and reconnecting with our true nature as loving and willing beings. And in particular, she loves helping moms get free from guilt, claim their true power as mothers, and understand how important mothering is. Yay! I want to say yay for that.
Yay!
Yes, yes. So I want to dive in and ask you about your passion, how it relates to the cultural conditioning and reconnecting with our true nature as loving, willing beings. I haven't heard it expressed that way, but I'm super excited about that. So,
Yay!
yeah.
Well, it's always tricky, isn't it, to condense things. I think really I started off with 25, 30 years ago, really interested in the mother-infant relationship and went on a whole long journey with that. And in the last few years, I've really been seeing that on a much bigger picture level, that really that transformation through mothering. And by that, I mean not only helping our children, helping the next generation come into the world, staying connected with who they really are, but also that invitation that we have as mothers to transform through the mothering journey. But also on a much bigger picture level, I'm really seeing the call of these times for us all, I think, whether we're mothers or not, to really mothers, women, to really claim our true sacred power as women and mothers, and to really understand true power and true love, and how I think this culture that we've been in for at least the last 2,000 years has really disconnected us from that true nature. And I think we're really being called to reclaim that and reconnect with who we really are. So that's kind of a bit of a summary for a start.
Yeah, so I would say you and I are definitely on the same page with that
Yay!
one. Yes, and that it's words I might use are just kind of the words of the valuing of both our role as mother and the feminine and what we bring, and just having more having more of a contribution, or more of a conscious contribution, is what I hear you naming, and that's certainly work that I am a stand for as well. And I think it starts a lot with valuing ourselves and our role as
Yes.
mothers.
Yes, I so agree with you, Joni. And I think, the way I see it now, it's really a result of colonization, which is, goes back even before that, which is, really where the feminine was devalued, and particularly mothers. I think we're still in this culture that really peddles this lie that mothers are not powerful and not important. And I think there's nothing that can be further than the truth, that as mothers we are profoundly important. We have a profound impact on the next generation. And really, I see, if we look at the bigger picture right now, the politics that are happening, I think we can trace so much back to this domination paradigm, and that as mothers we have the power to really change that through our mothering, through our self-mothering, and
Mm-hmm.
through, really changing the paradigm that we're living within.
Yes. And of course, the thing that most lit me on fire, that you teach about and put out into the world, and that I saw on Instagram, was this whole concept of power with, as
Yes.
opposed to power over. So if you can dive into that one, this is really important, and it's really at the crux of the matter of what I hear you talking about.
Yes. So again, I would see this as part of a much bigger cultural paradigm that we've been in for at least 2,000 years, the
Mm-hmm.
domination paradigm, which was really being based on those that have the most economic or social or political or just physical power, use that power over others to make others, to coerce others into doing things. And that's happened in everything from parenting to politics to,
Mm-hmm.
the whole king and servants thing,
Mm-hmm.
everywhere we see. And I think what often happened is that got passed down from generation to generation. So it was the old school authoritarian parenting, which was, the parents had the power and the children were the powerlessness ones. And there were all kinds of things that were used as part of that: coercion and shaming and guilt and punishment and force and push and all of that kind of stuff, which, has really profound consequences and leads to children either going into compliance and,
Mm-hmm.
from that sense of powerlessness, just kind of putting up with it, or then going into power over themselves. And then that, it just gets passed down from generation to generation. And I really see, as mothers, our invitation to really see how deeply we've been affected by growing up in that paradigm,
Mm.
particularly in the places where we go into powerlessness in our own mothering and in other places in our lives, and where we go into power over. So where we go into
Mm-hmm.
even subtle forms of power over or coercion, and how we do that in ourselves. For me, we internalize that power over paradigm. So most of us do that by either forcing ourselves to do things, guilting ourselves to do things, not listening to ourselves, all of that kind of stuff. So I really see the invitation is to help ourselves move out of that, free ourselves from that cultural conditioning, and raise a new generation of human beings who brought up with power with rather than power over, which is all about understanding willingness and why children do as they do and don't do as they don't do. And it's a really a whole new picture, which is for me true power, which is very different from the power over we see, for example, in politics at the moment. We see a lot of
Mm.
power over happening,
Mm-hmm.
and for me that always comes from powerlessness, doesn't it? If we see, particularly, I call them the three white men at the moment who are in big positions of power, is, that's not true power. For me, that comes from powerlessness, because when we feel that true power in ourselves, we don't need to use power over others. We don't need to coerce or punish or hurt others, because we feel that deep interconnectedness, which is about being connected with the life force of the universe, isn't it? So we don't need to make people do things, because we're in that position. And I do think there's a calling at the moment for women and women identifying people to really really understand that true power and really reconnect with that and heal our own hurts from the domination paradigm, because I think it's the feminine that's been called to stand in that new power to support the masculine to free itself from that old paradigm.
Yes. Yes, I absolutely agree. And it's important work, but it's also can be so subtle because, as you said, it's like the air we breathe and the water we're swimming in. So
Yes.
I think about my own journey in parenting my daughter, and in those in those moments, those very real moments of powerlessness that show up at every stage of the game.
Yes.
It's that how do I meet that and not try and assert, as you said, that domination or control, and it's so like in the nervous system. Um,
Yes.
yeah. So can you say a little bit about whether the work you do or how you work with people when they notice, for example, they're in that powerlessness or that activated, what I would call activated state, to
Yes.
help find or reconnect? Yeah.
I tend to think there are many ways, but I find there are two key ways. One is really developing a lot of compassion for ourselves in those
Mm,
powerlessness places, and to understand that is completely normal and natural, because most of us by the time we're adults would have had probably thousands of experiences of being coerced into doing things, forced into doing things, and also, which I didn't really mention, is not having our natural feelings around that coercion being heard. So for me, that's an
mm,
expression of outrage and frustration. For children to get to express that, that's part of them releasing those feelings of powerlessness. So that's so normal and natural that as we're mothers, that, or in any relationship actually, but particularly in mothering, that those feelings of powerlessness are going to bubble up, and that's an opportunity to not hit ourselves with those emotional sticks of guilt and shaming, which are part of that same paradigm, but to actually learn to be compassionate with ourselves in those places. And I think that's one of the key points, is really compassionate understanding of why we can feel that degree of powerlessness, because it's so excruciating, isn't it? Powerlessness is one of the most uncomfortable feelings to be with. And you laugh because it's like, isn't it? It's terrible.
it is. I'm laughing
Really.
because it is. Yeah.
Yes. And that kind of, I often think laughter is a bit of release of fear, and it's just discomfort, isn't it, when we connect in with. I remember some
Yes.
of my most painful parenting moments really have all come from that position of powerlessness. So I think number one is lots and lots of compassion for ourselves, and understanding that, this is coming up, it's from the past, it's normal and
Yes.
natural to feel this way, and it's, we're trying to heal, our bodies and psyches are trying to heal from those experiences.
Right. So it's a matter of making progress, but not expecting ourselves to be perfect, it sounds like.
Yes. So there's another way I tend to go then, which is really finding ways to get younger parts to be heard. So the more we
Mm,
can hear that powerlessness, or have someone else hear it and get to express our outrage and our frustration, ideally not to our children, but to an adult who can listen to us.
mm-hmm.
That's going to be a really helpful way that it shows up less in our parenting, for example. So
Yes.
that's another really helpful way, is to really see that, as you say, it's such a nervous system thing. It's a fight or flight mechanism showing up,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
those pieces are really just wanting to be completed. So having someone who can listen to us and support us in that compassionate listening, I think, is so helpful.
Mm, yes. So I'm feeling drawn to ask about the partner aspect. And I don't know
Yes.
if that comes up a lot for you in your
Yes.
work with clients or.
Yes, and I think often it's the similar themes show up, and it's not only just, for men as well. I see a lot of powerlessness showing up, and And often if they're dads as well, that can mean that this, new ways of parenting that are not power over can be quite challenging
Mm-hmm.
for men. So yeah, is that what you're meaning, talking more about that?
Well, that, but also I guess I'm just wondering if the relational dynamic between parents comes up, or whether it's the disagreements over parenting styles, or just the shifting of the power structure. It seems like it's not happening in a vacuum. It's happening
Yes.
as we are
Yes.
relating to our partners, and as they are doing their parenting, and as they have feelings about our parenting or whatnot. So
Yes. I think it so often happens, don't you, that often, just like with our children, that in our partnerships we can go into those powerlessness places in ourselves, and we become the child, and
yes.
we're seeing our partner through that lens, and they're
Mm-hmm.
becoming the parent who isn't listening to us, or who his, whatever the original hurts were, and we go
Mm-hmm.
back into those powerlessness places. And again, we have those two choices. It appears to be the old-fashioned two, which was either to be powerless and resentful and hurt, or to move it into power over. And that might be in, again, more outward or more subtle ways. Often I think for women, power has often been in kind of quite indirect ways. We've tried to gain power. So
Mm-hmm.
the kind of subtle or not so subtle ways of doing that.
Yes.
And I think, again, really coming to this new way of understanding that it's that compassionate piece for the powerlessness, but then it's also cultivating this new power, which is true power, which is power with, which isn't about that old paradigm of power over, but it comes from that deep sense of connectedness, and that deep sense of our body's power, being connected with the power of the universe, that kind of
Mm-hmm.
energy.
Yeah, so I would love to hear you talk about, just as children grow developmentally, certainly from like an infant stage, or a toddler or preschooler stage, what that looks like in terms of the power with. Um, do you, do you know what I'm
Yes,
asking? Am I being
yes.
clear? Okay.
Well, I think there are a few different things we can think about. I have a little mantra that can be really helpful for us as parents, is because part of true power is actually willingness. So rather than
Mm.
coercion or
Mm-hmm.
force, it's
Mm-hmm.
actually understanding willingness, and how we can be connected with our willingness as adults, but also how we can support our children in staying connected to their true willing nature.
Mm.
So it's really understanding, if our child isn't willing to cooperate, for example, is to look behind that, what's going on for them, what are they needing, how can we both get our needs met. So it comes back to that lovingness part, is staying connected and being curious and understanding
Mm.
what's going on for them. The other thing is really providing them with an environment that supports their staying connected with their willingness. So that's supporting their agency, giving them lots of choice and autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third piece is really supporting them when their, what I call their willingness channel, gets silted up. So it's really normal and natural for particularly small children to feel powerless, to feel frustrated, and to have natural feelings of, the frustration, the outrage, and the powerlessness sitting in their bodies. And the way that we can help them with that is really listening to those feelings. So being empathic and listening to the frustration, listening to the tantrums, because tantrums are part of that natural expression of those feelings. So the more we can increase our capacity to be in that ability to be with those big feelings, which often requires us to do our own inner work around our own outrage and
Mm-hmm.
frustration, so that we can stay calmly present with those big feelings in them. What happens then is they're holding in fewer of those powerlessness feelings, which means they feel more power in their bodies. That natural willingness channel is working. They're feeling more connected with that, which means they're more likely to cooperate with us, they feel more connected with us, and they're less likely to go into what we could call power over for children, which are things like hitting or pushing or throwing or taking, all of those kinds of things, which from this model is really an expression of unexpressed feelings of powerlessness. So it's really, yeah, carry on.
Oh, just wondering, is biting
Yes.
part of that as well?
Yeah, yes, yeah, all of those things. Biting,
Okay.
pinching, pushing, taking, throwing, hitting.
Yeah. Okay.
It's all those natural feelings that just haven't been expressed in healthy ways. It's really knowing that, you know, it just means that there's some frustration, some outrage that just needs to come out. And it's usually through that kind of rah,
Yes.
through the tantrum, which is not about hurting anyone, but it's really that, really reclaiming that as a beautiful natural feeling that we all have, and really differentiating that. And again, in our wider culture, we can look at that even for us as adults. You know, I differentiate. If I'm seeing what's going on in the planet or the politicians, you know, I can feel my outrage. There's a really different quality from feeling outrage and having a really clear, what I call a neo-no to that. Like, I'm really not willing for this to happen, which is very different from either feeling really powerless about it, which you can have lots of compassion for, or going into our own power over, which might be judgment or, you know, wanting to hurt the other. You know, and it's the same for us, whatever age we are, whether a 2-year-old or a 50-year-old. It's like the more we get to compassionately hear the powerlessness and the outrage and the frustration, the more we actually come to that true sense of power, which to me is the clear no, the clear limits. And that can be, again, for us in our own parenting, which may be a loving limit where we might say, you know, I'm really not willing for you to bite or hit, sweetheart, and I'm right here and I'm listening, and I'm here to listen to the feelings that underlie that behavior. So what we're really doing when we're responding to, whether it's our child or a partner or a politician, is you know, it's really aiming and increasing our capacity to stay in that true centered power rather than go into powerlessness or power over.
Yes, that which sovereignty is a word I use a lot,
Yes.
and that is my sense of what you're describing is both a sense of sovereignty as an adult, but also like the seeds of that for the children to be their own sovereign beings. Like, that's how you grow into that.
Yes, I love that. And to me, sovereignty is really, you know, is about agency and autonomy and choice, and you know, being respected in that, you know, right from birth and even in utero, that, you know, human beings have, you know, such clear needs, don't they, for agency and choice. And you know, that's our deepest connection with who we really are. I think that's and I think that's why powerlessness feels so painful. I wonder if you agree, is that I think our agency and our autonomy really connects us in with our will, which is the deepest sense of who we really are as an individual. And I wonder if that's how it links to sovereignty.
I haven't thought of it in that way, but I think you're absolutely right. I think you're absolutely right.
So wonderful to get to share ideas, isn't it? And you know, I'd love to hear more, anything
Yes.
more that you want to say about this, because loving the conversation.
I know it's so rich, and it does kind of foster new connections, and which is part of why I wanted to have you come on. But I don't have more to say on this quite yet, but I frankly would love to hear, if you're open to sharing, just how you were drawn to this body of work, or what inspired you, because it sounds like you started the learning well before you ever had children of your own.
I did, and I'm very grateful to that. And I really see it's like my soul's calling, because it was really my birth. I was born 10 weeks prematurely. I was in an incubator for 5 weeks. And you know, I had quite a few separation experiences in my childhood as well. So by the time I was a teenager, I was so scared. I was so quiet, and I was quite in quite a lot of emotional pain, and it really, I just had this really strong calling. I want to understand why I am the way I am, and
Yes.
I want to feel more comfortable in myself. And so that's what took me to the degree in psychology, the PhD. Then I also trained in my 20s whilst I was working in academia. I trained as a psychotherapist and psychosynthesis, and I really immersed myself in all of this inner healing. 10 years of individual therapy, loads of different things before I became a mother, and I'm so incredibly grateful that I did do that, because it was such a wonderful foundation for becoming a mother. And I just think it's so, when we do become a mother, it's so often that invitation for transformation, and such a big thing to be holding, not only aiming to support our children, but also all our inner children that inevitably will show up. So I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful I had a little bit of a head start on the inner children part.
Yes, because they can be a handful.
They can cry very loudly, and it's not only one of them, we have them at every different age, so there's it's a lot. So I really want to acknowledge all parents for the bigness of the journey when we're aiming to do that with consciousness. What a huge thing it is, and so challenging and hard at times, particularly in a culture that really doesn't value parenting or mothering, and doesn't understand how crucially important it is for humanity, really.
Yes. And I think about I don't know what it's like in your culture, because I'm here in the States and I know you're in Australia, but
Yes.
parents often it's pretty solitary. Like there's not community built into the experience of motherhood. You can create it, you can find it, but by and large, it's parents living alone in a home with their children.
Yes. And again, I really think this is like an offshoot of this domination paradigm, because I really don't think we're designed to live like this, do you? I think we're designed to live in community with lots of parents all hanging out together, all different ages.
Yes.
From the elders to the babies. It just,
yes.
I think so much of what's hard about this is because it's so much about the cultural piece, which I think why it's so important to understand that piece, that when we're having a hard time, well, of course, because how is this going to be easy living in nuclear families and all of the things? So yeah.
Right. And to be able to, if there were a setup where when you needed a moment to tend to yourself, you could put your children in the care of a loving other adult. And sometimes both parents need that. So it's a lot.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Exactly. I mean, it's just, and I actually think, because I think we're designed to have multiple secure attachments. And actually, I remember a couple of years ago when I realized that actually a lot of the powerlessness I think we can feel as mothers, and probably dads as well too, is because of the culture. Because I remember when my children were younger, I was often at home on my own with the two of them. And, if we were running out of food and I wanted to go to the shops to go and buy some food and get in the car, then of course I needed to take them with me because they were too little. I wasn't going to leave them at home alone. Needed to get them into the car, into car seats, all of those things. And just to see so much of the powerlessness is actually created by the culture that we live in. Because if we did live in a group-based culture, and maybe we'd be going off, picking the berries or going off to market or whatever it was, our children would have multiple people that they were securely attached with, that they would be hanging out with, and we could just go off and do that. So I think it's really helpful to see that this culture not only practically really creates powerlessness, but also psychologically creates powerlessness because of the conditioning and the ways we we've been brought up to perceive ourselves, I think.
I agree. And I'm thinking about So I have a niece and a nephew who are younger. They're 5 and 8 at this point. But I'm thinking about
Yes.
the whole car seat issue. I don't know if you have
Yes.
car seats, but
Yes.
willingness, children, and car
Yes.
seats, not
Yes.
always, doesn't always go together.
No, exactly. And I think also car seats can, the way I like to see it as well, that things that appear to be difficult in the here and now can often be because they are opportunities for us to feel feelings that are about the
Mm,
past. And I think for
mm,
children who do so often feel powerless, even if we aim to give them choice and autonomy, it's a car seat is almost like the epitome of it, isn't it? Because they're not only,
yes.
they're in the car seat, they can't move, they don't have choice and autonomy, they're in the car, which we have control over, we're choosing where it goes. I mean, just
Hmm.
it's such a, almost like an archetypal experience, isn't it, of powerlessness. And so any past feelings of powerlessness, any unexpressed frustration or rage, uh, any past feelings of not getting to choose and have autonomy are likely to show up around the car seat. So having that understanding can help us so that we can
Mm,
the more we can listen to their feelings of frustration, their tantrums, their crying, the more we can give them choice and autonomy in other parts of their lives, and the more we can so there's another part of aware parenting which is called attachment play. And
mm-hmm,
so
mm-hmm.
we can also play power reversal games which also help them release feelings of powerlessness through laughter. So for example, with the car seat, those are all different ways that we can support our children so that the car seat becomes about the car seat and not also helping them remember all these other past
Mm.
experiences of powerlessness.
Yes. So I know just what you were referring to in terms of the play. When my daughter was about 2.5 or 3, we
Yes.
started learning about it, the parenting through connection work, and what was at that point they called special time. And I
Yes.
think you have it's similar practice, but maybe a different name that you use. But that was such a powerful technique that I have shared with multiple parents who've come after me, because this
Yay.
exactly what, yeah, exactly what you're
Yay.
saying.
Yay. So wonderful. So aware parenting is one of my background pieces, and
Hmm.
it's very similar to parenting by connection. It's just different founders and different names and different nuances, but very
Hmm.
similar in its core concepts. And yeah, isn't it a wonderful thing to know that actually play is profoundly therapeutic and that we can use it in really tangible ways to help children release those feelings of powerlessness and feel more powerful in their bodies, so they are more willing to cooperate with us.
Yes. And can you describe just briefly the kind of the structure around what is the name that you call it? I know
Oh,
I was taught.
attachment play.
Yes,
Attachment play.
attachment
Yes.
play. Can you do just a brief?
Yes. Yeah. Well, so attachment plays from aware parenting. It's part of it. The other part is listening to crying and raging,
Hmm.
and it's also a attachment form of attachment parenting too. So the play part is really the understanding that children release accumulated feelings of powerlessness and fear and frustration and so on through games, through play, and through laughter. And they are constantly trying to do that. So whether that's getting silly and goofy before bedtime, or um, running around the house and playing silly games when they get home from school, they're actually they're trying to get us to cooperate with those natural forms of play. And there are 9 different types that can be used. So power reversal games are one of them.
Mm.
Present time is similar to special time,
Hmm.
and it's really about us understanding how to cooperate with those natural mechanisms that they have to feel relaxed, to release stress from their body, to be
Mm.
able to cooperate, all of those things. So power reversal games are one of those types. And in power reversal games, we're basically playing, for that period of time, we're playing the less powerful one, and we invite them to be the more powerful one. So that might be they're chasing us around the house, and we pretend to keep falling over and saying, oh, you're not going to catch me, are you? And they're running around, and they get to laugh, and they get to release through
Mm.
their laughter the feelings of being smaller and not having as much power and all of
Yeah.
those things. So there are particular games that we can play to support children and to really understand their natural wisdom that we don't often understand in other parenting paradigms, that they're trying, when they're getting really rambunctious before bed, they're not fighting sleep, they're actually trying to use that natural relaxation mechanism. And if we really understand that and cooperate with them, they then can feel more relaxed. Then they can sleep more easily.
Yes, that is huge. So
Yes.
if someone wanted to learn more about the aware parenting and in your work in particular, is it,
Yes.
I know you post on social media in a few places, but
Yes.
do you have courses you offer, or?
Yes, I have a gazillion courses.
A gazillion, okay.
I have quite a few courses on my website, marionrose.net. And also, a lot of them are on aware parenting. And also I have, things on power and powerlessness and all different stuff. But also, if you want to look at Aletha Salter's work, who developed aware parenting, her website is awareparenting.com.
Okay. Yeah, so awareparenting.com. And I know that you've made a very generous offer for our listeners that you wanted to share with us. So it's your Powerlessness, Power Over, and Power Within Parenting Masterclass.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that? And I know there's a coupon for that. So
Yes. Well, it's really, I'm just talking about all of these things in more detail, and really with understanding power over, powerlessness, and power with in parenting, and how to support ourselves in actually feeling more of that true inner power, and what
yes.
to do if we are feeling powerless or we're going into power over. So it's really that supportive understanding to help us be more in our own power, which really supports our children to stay in their own power or their own sovereignty, in your words.
Yes. And the thing let me just say before I say my
Yes.
comment, but the link for this free masterclass it's on the website podcast episode page. So if you're listening to this on Apple or Stitcher or Spotify, you can go to my website, revolutionaryheart.com, to the podcast page to access the link to Marion's masterclass. So I want to say that. But the thing that struck me when you were describing really all of this is that it's power with heart. It's like
Yes.
power with an open heart, which
Yes.
is, in my opinion, what we're moving into, is what we're called to, and it's what we as mothers have the capacity to help foster.
Yes. I so agree. And to me, that's, that I have a bigger paradigm of psychospiritual parenting, which is all about lovingness and willingness. And to me, that's, our true power is deeply, love and will are at their heart interconnected. So I so agree with you. It's all about deep unconditional love and true power, and that the bringing together of those. And I think that's what we are being called to as women and as mothers. And I so agree with you that I think that's, what we're here to help with on a bigger picture level as well, not only for ourselves and our children, but for this beautiful planet that we live on.
Yes. So often I ask my guests if there was some bit of wisdom they would share with their younger version of themselves from their point of view now, what it might be. So do you have anything? I know you have a strong connection to your younger selves already, so you may have done this countless times, but today, from what we've been discussing.
I think it would be something like everything is there's nothing wrong, you're not doing anything wrong, that everything
Mm,
that you're doing in your journey is all exactly par for the course. So
yeah.
I would probably have just to say to her, I love you exactly as you are, and just keep going.
Mm, you're gonna get there. Something like that. You're gonna
Well,
get
you
there.
already are there. You already are there. So just keep going. You're on the path. You're on the path, and
Yay.
it's all just going to get clearer and clearer as you keep going.
Awesome. Yeah. So my one last piece I want to ask, because if there are listeners that that with the powerless maybe sometimes have those moments where they just feel like I just can't do it, or maybe they have
Yes.
trauma or hardship in their past, and they just feel broken in some way. And I know you don't believe they're broken, but what would you say to someone who has those moments of struggle?
I would say I love you unconditionally,
Mm,
and I really hear how hard it is. And there is nothing wrong with you, sweetheart. There's
mm,
nothing wrong with you.
mm. Beautiful, Marion.
Oh.
So I have to say, I'm so glad that you are joyfully sharing this work, because I really believe it is evolutionary. It's transformational, revolutionary work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you, lovely. I'm so touched, and so honoring what you're doing. So it means so much to me to hear that from you. Thank you.
My pleasure. Yes. So I'm thrilled you could be here with us today, and I don't know if there's anything else that you would like to say or share or name before we bring this to a close.
I really want to acknowledge and appreciate everyone who's listening, and to say I really acknowledge all that you're doing, and so appreciate you and send you so much love.
Mm. And I think what comes to mind that I would add, and I believe you would probably agree with me, is it's never too late. So even if you're a
Yes,
grandmother or a great
yes,
grandmother, you can
yes.
still,
Oh, yes.
yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah. Uh, a little story there. My mum is 88, and
Hmm.
we've been on a long journey since my birth, as I was sharing earlier, and just the continual transformation that happens in our relationship, and the things that she keeps shifting. And she's 88, and I just think it's absolutely, I totally agree with you, never ever too late to
Mm,
take the next step.
absolutely. And to find that sense of empowerment and sense of love coexisting is at any
Yes.
age or stage.
Yes, 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 such a big yes.
All right. Go
I
ahead.
love how you said that, the coexistence of empowerment and love. Yes,
Mhm.
such a big yes.
Yeah. Yes. I think we're on the same page there, Marion.
We so are.
Yes. All right. So I want to just reaffirm that to get information on Marion's work, you can go to marionrose.net. She's also on Instagram and Facebook, both of which is under just your name, correct? Marion Rose?
Yes, Instagram is _Marion_Rose_, and on Facebook it's Marion Rose Transformation Through Mothering.
Wonderful. Okay. And
Mm.
I will post those again on the web page show notes for this episode to have all those links if people want to connect with you. And I want to thank you for being with
Oh.
us.
Thank you so much. I've so enjoyed it, and so enjoyed getting to know you more. Thank you. Thank you.
Likewise, it was my pleasure. And I want to thank you, our dear listeners, for being here with us today. And as always, I want to remind you, until next time, to trust what your heart knows.
Thanks for listening to Trust Your Sacred Feminine Flow with Joni Advent Maher. If you like what you heard, the best compliment you can give us is to share our podcast with a friend and subscribe, rate, and review at Apple Podcasts.